Hey guys, welcome back to Magic TV. My name's Craig. It's 9 o'clock. It's a Friday. It's time for another video. And today I'm going to be doing a viewpoint. It's not really a rant, it's a viewpoint. But I am going to be talking about something that I've seen happening recently in the Magic community that I really think needs to stop. And this has been going on since time began. And or as long back as Magic has existed, this has been going on. But it seems to be getting a lot worse recently. I'm going to give you a couple of examples of things that I've seen and why this isn't very good and potentially what we can do about it. So, what am I talking about? I'm talking about copying other magicians' acts or lines or bits of business to basically just insert into your own act. And unfortunately, I really wish that more magicians were original or had a little bit of originality. I'm going to give you a few examples of this that have happened in the last few weeks that have got me to the point where I'm actually making this video. And a recent thing is my friend Aiden McCann. Now, Aiden McCann is a young magician from Ireland, very good friend of Ryland's, good friend of mine. Hilarious, cheeky little sausage, but really great. And he was on America's All-Stars recently, and on America's All-Stars, he got the golden buzzer, he got through to the final. I think he did a grand job. There you go, a little bit of an Irish saying there, did a grand job. I thought it was exceptional. Now, you probably noticed that in one of his performances, he used Socks by Vanishing Ink and Michelle Huit. Now, I've been waxing lyrical about Socks for years. This is something that I've done all of the time. I've done videos on Socks. I've talked about handling changes that I've done on this particular routine. It's a very old trick. Now, Vanishing Ink have got various different versions of it. They've got the Halloween version, the Christmas version, the standard version. It's an item that, has always been popular, continues to be popular, but it's not like a bestseller anymore. It's been out for years. When it first came out, everybody was buying it, and now, sales continue, and rightfully so, because it's a very good trick. But one thing that I noticed on Vanishing Ink's bestseller list is for several days after Aiden's performance, Socks, the trick, went straight into the #1 slot. A trick that's years old, and it went straight into the #1 slot immediately. Like literally immediately went straight into the top slot and stayed there for a very, very long time. Now, what does that tell you and me? Well, as far as I'm concerned, it tells us that there's a bunch of magicians all around the world that watched Aiden perform Socks and then thought, you know what? That's good, I'm going to put that in my act, and just took it and put it in their act, which they've got every right to. It's a commercially available trick. I'm not saying don't buy the trick, but the thing is, you should try to put stuff into your act because you think it's right for you, not because you saw somebody else do it on TV and you wanted to get that sort of reaction. Well, I know Aiden. Aiden spent a long time thinking about what to do in that performance and went back and forth over a whole bunch of different things and went with Socks because it's something that he's performed for a long time. You look back at Ryland on Britain's Got Talent, and when Ryland did Britain's Got Talent, in the audition, he did the cube wall, which had been out a year before when Ryland did Britain's Got Talent. And literally, the next week, like literally the following week after his audition went up, like cube wall went to the top slot in Penguin, it went to the top slot in Vanishing Ink. Like everybody was buying cube walls. Now, this had been a trick that had been out for a long time. Ryland had been doing it in his act for about a year and a half prior to Britain's Got Talent. But then all of a sudden, a week after it appears on national television, everybody starts to buy a cube wall. You know what? Recently, we did a show at the Rougeley Rose Theatre, and I've put some footage up of some of the acts that were on there. I put some footage up of Wayne Goodman on a 5x5 a little while ago, and Roman Armstrong and Ryland and Matt, obviously. It was a great show, great lineup, absolutely fantastic lineup. I'll tell you something, there were several magicians in the audience, and at the end of the night, I had 3 separate magicians come up to me that I'd never met before, and they asked me questions about various different tricks that were happening in the act. One particular person, and really nice magician, came up with a notepad and had obviously been taking notes and was asking questions like, what was the name of the trick that Matt used in the finale of his act? The big box, and what was the cane called that Ryland did, and the light up version? Where can you get that from? Oh, and what was the trick with the bucket that Ryland did with the coins? Do you know what that's called? Can I get the name for that? And literally was just writing down the names of various tricks, and it's just like he obviously came to the show Didn't come to enjoy the act, or maybe he did, I don't know, but came away going, right, I can put that into my act, that into my act, that into my act, that into my act. And it's just a little bit sad. I've seen it before. I've seen it over and over again. I've been to lots of magic conventions in the last year and a half. And I see so many magicians literally sitting there making notes in the shows. Just making notes on lines and bits of business. Now, obviously, if you're in a lecture, yeah, make notes, absolutely. That lecturer is there to lecture to you. That lecturer is there to teach you how to do magic. It's there to teach you routines, and they're paid to be there. Absolutely, take as many notes as you want to, 100%. But when it comes to watching an act that's not there to lecture, like I saw it happen in the competition in the one. I saw so many people making notes on what was going on. I was like, oh, this is just really sad. This is just sad. I got to be honest. This is just sad. And Mark James put it best. So at the session convention, in their gala show, their evening show on the Sunday night, Mark James was hosting it, and he made a quip, a line. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was like, hey, don't feel like you have to applaud. The sound of scribbling pencils is all of the acknowledgement that we need. And it was done as a joke. It made the entire audience laugh. But the bottom line is, in all honesty with you, what we have there is the God's honest truth. What we have there is absolutely 100% fact. Look, I could sit here and give you a ton of examples of this happening. I've seen it happen over and over again over the course of years. I've seen it happen at my shows. I've seen it happen at shows that I've been to. I've seen it happen at magic conventions. I've seen it happen all the time. And unfortunately, it's not going away anytime soon. And it's frustrating that magicians out there lack the simple creativity to be able to put their own act together, and instead they have to watch somebody else's act and go, you know what, I'm going to take that line, I'm going to take that act, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And it's just a sad state of affairs. It really is. I remember seeing, and this is going back a little while ago, I remember seeing a kid performing, I say a kid, it was a sort of 18, 19, 20-year-old performing. And I'm going back about 10 or 12 years now, but I saw somebody perform, can't even remember their name, to be perfectly honest. But you could just tell that their favourite magician was Michael Amar. And how do I know their favourite magician was Michael Amar? It was because the entire act wasn't just full of Michael Amar tricks, but the delivery, the lines, the way everything was said was basically Michael Amar. It's like they took Michael Amar and just plugged it into this person's head, and it didn't necessarily work. It didn't fit their persona. It didn't fit who they were. And, you know, I've seen it recently. I see a lot of kid magicians, and I've seen some kid magicians recently on video, on YouTube, and they have this like 13-year-olds and 12-year-olds, and their presentation is the sort of thing that like a 20 or a 30 or a 40-year-old would say. It's not the sort of thing that a 13-year-old would say. And you can see that they've just seen this presentation and they've just parroted it, and they've made it kind of their own. Well, they haven't really made it their own. They've just literally taken it and they've started to deliver it ad nauseum. And I think that the tricks that you perform and the style in which that you perform them, it's really important that you consider who you are. So, you know, I'm not saying that Ryland's the best kid magician in the world, but one thing that I know that he does is the magic that he does is based on stuff that a kid would like to do. You see Rubik's Cubes, you see Lego, you see ultraviolet light, you see invisible ink, you see making canes and handkerchiefs float around all over the place. This is the sort of thing that a kid would want to be able to do. And I think it's really important that as magicians, we start to try and, you know, like come up with our own acts and come up with our own material. And really, that art seems to have been dead. That art seems to be dead, and it's such a shame because it's something that happened an awful lot when I was into magic younger. When I was 18, 19, and I first got into magic, I was really that guy that would spend all of my time trying to make my act as original as possible, and it didn't always work. Sometimes it did, sometimes it didn't, but I tried my absolute best to make it as original and as unique as I could, and not just rip off and just take other people's acts and bits of business and just make it my own. So, I call this a rant. It's not really a rant. What it is, to be perfectly honest, is it's just an observation of something that I've seen happening an awful lot. And I don't even think a lot of the time that people realize that they're doing something that potentially isn't the best thing to do. I'm not saying that it's wrong. I'm not saying that watching someone do a particular trick on TV and then buying it and putting it in your own act is wrong. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is we should all strive to try and make our performances as unique as we can, and try to make the material that we perform as unique to us as possible. It's you look at my Visible project, and where did that come about? It came about because I wanted to do the invisible deck in a different way to everybody else. I wanted to do it in a unique way. Look at somebody like Scott Alexander, who's unfortunately no longer with us, rest in peace. But one thing that Scott used to do is he used to take classics of magic and turn them on their head. You look at all of Scott's routines. You look at Hanky Panky. Well, that was 20th Century Silks, but it had the Scott Alexander twist to it. You look at American Sticks. Well, that is the Chinese Sticks, but it's just got Scott's. He's adapted it to work for himself. Look at his work on the Ring Flight. Look at his work on the Invisible Deck. Look at Superfly. That's his version of Cards Across. Look at Nailed It. That's his version of Smash and Stab. I could go on and on and on. Look at Shoe Business, whether it's 1, 2, or 3. That's his version of Vanishing Bandana. Look at MIB. It's his version of a confabulation or a mystery box plot. The point I'm trying to make is Scott took all of those classics of magic, but he made them his own. And I think that's very, very important. The amount of people that have reached out to me after we did the Matchumentary, the amount of people that reached out to me and said, what was the final trick in Matt's act called? Well, it was called a master prediction system. Oh, right, brilliant. I want a master prediction system. Well, great, but you didn't think you needed one until you saw Matt do it. Why is it that you want a master prediction system? Is it because, what's the reason? But it's the tricks that you buy or the tricks that you learn, they have to fit you as a performer. They really do. So the choice of material that I use, whether it's close-up or it's on stage, it works for me because I know who my character is. I know who I am as a performer. I know what I can do. I know what I can't do. And that allows me to be very selective of material. And I just think that I wish more people would do that rather than rushing out and going, oh my God, I've just seen Aiden McCann do an amazing job with socks. I want to go and buy socks. And they're only buying it because they've seen somebody else do it on TV and do a really good job. And as I say, I don't think people realize that they're doing wrong with this, because I see posts on Facebook all the time, and they'll link, in the different magic groups, and they'll link through to a video of somebody who's performed on a talent show or somebody who's performed on TV, and it'll be like, hey, where can I buy this trick from? Hey, where can I buy this trick from? Hey, where can I get this from? And it's like, well, that person who went on that show, they probably spent a long time putting an act together that was unique and it was perfect for them. And that trick suits them. Just because it suits them, it doesn't mean it's going to suit you. Just because that line that magician delivered on stage at that magic convention made everybody laugh, doesn't mean it's a line that you can pull off. Comedy is subjective. One person could say one thing and it would bring the house down. Somebody else could say the same thing and it would just die on its arse. So it's very much a case of, I think that if there's anything that I'm trying to say in this video, it's that if you're watching this and you've ever done something like that, that's fine. It's part of learning to be a magician. It's a part of learning to be yourself. It's a part of learning to find your style and your character. But try to be more unique from a creativity point of view. Look at that, you've bought this trick and you go, okay, I've got this trick. This is a great trick. How can I make this my own? How can I take this trick and make it so that it fits me? What lines can I use? and write down lines, write down notes on how you're going to script it and what you're going to say and what lines you're going to say at that point, and try them out and see if it works. Because I guarantee you, you know, Nemeth Phoenix, my friend, I'll finish with this. My friend Nemeth Phoenix is a perfect example. He's a hilarious magician. He's one of the funniest magicians that I know. He is equally as funny as he is technically competent. He is brilliant in every single way. And he always turns around to me and says, "Hey, you can steal my my material. I don't care, but never steal any of my lines, because those lines are what make me me." And he told a story about how somebody once saw him perform at a venue, and then he saw them perform the week later, and the act in which they did, the lines were taken directly from his act, and he spent weeks coming up with those lines and making them work, and trying them out and having them not work and tweaking them and making them work eventually, and they fit his character perfectly. And then for somebody to just not even ask, but watch him perform, and then literally just lift up everything and put it into their own act, you know, it's not a nice thing to do. So strive to be more creative. Strive to try to make your act unique. Try to make your presentation unique. Try to make your character unique. It's not a rant, like I say, this isn't a rant, but it's just a plea that if you're one of those magicians that thinks it's okay to see a trick on TV and say, "Hey, I want to learn that. I want to do that. Where can I get it from?" Well, it was unique for that person. Oh, okay, well, I'm going to do it anyway. I met somebody who did that once. I've met a few people that have done that, but I remember one person being so brazen about it, and they literally was just performing a trick that I knew it wasn't theirs, and it hadn't even been marketed, and they'd seen this person do it. You know what? I remember going to a talent competition. I entered a talent competition many years ago. Like we're talking, I can't remember how far back now, probably about 15 years ago. And there was a magician on the same bill as me. Or was it? No! I watched David Penn in a competition. I don't know. Doesn't really care. Doesn't really matter. But there was a talent competition. There was a magician on that talent competition. And this magician did the Penn and Teller fish tank routine, the miser's dream with the fish tank, where Teller sits somebody down on the chair, gives them the fish bowl, takes the water, drops, makes coins, does that over and over again, and in the end makes fish appear. And they did it like literally word for word, action for action. It's like they watched the thing 1,000 times, had a prop built that did exactly the same thing, and literally copied every single second of it, which was hilarious because the guy that was doing it obviously wasn't a performer that didn't speak, but went into the routine and didn't speak because that's how Teller did it. And I remember sitting there really upset because that routine is one of my favourite routines of all time. I remember the first time I saw it, which is when myself and my wife got married in Vegas, and we went to see Penn and Teller at the Rio afterwards for our evening entertainment. And we saw Teller do that, and I saw him do it for the first time. And as a coin magician and as a fan of Penn and Teller, watching them do that night, I have never been more fooled in my life. I remember watching it and thinking, oh my gosh, that's amazing. That's just like the best version of that plot I've ever seen in my life. And, you know, I still think that to this day. And then I remember seeing a few years later, this guy just literally take the whole thing and do it word for word. You know, I've seen, there's a lot of examples like that. I remember a few years ago, some person from a foreign country, I can't remember where, but literally just take Piff's act from Penn and Teller Fool Us and America's Got Talent, and literally just do the same act word for word on this TV show. Just literally word for word. And I was like, what? Literally word for word, even to the point that it was like eating a banana afterwards and stuff. Just literally ripped the whole thing off, came out in a dragon outfit, no change. I remember going to another talent competition once, and I was in the audience for this one. I remember being in the audience for this one. And these two performers came out, and they were doing, what were they doing? These two performers came out, right? And they introduced themselves as time-traveling Victorians. And they basically did Morgan and West's act. I'm a huge Morgan and West fan. Literally did their entire act. And I remember that night coming out and ringing up Rhys Morgan and saying to him, hey, just so you know, I've just seen this, and these guys just basically just ripped off every single concept of your act. And I told them, because I knew how hard Morgan and West had worked on creating those characters. And that's so unique to them, that whole time-traveling Victorian thing. It works for them perfectly. They've made it work. They've got a whole backstory and everything. And to see another act lazily, and it was lazy, literally take their entire concept and just perform it as is on a stage, and it was just cringy. It was just embarrassing to watch, and I just think this sort of thing needs to stop. And I think that the only way that it can stop is by the magic community pulling people up on stuff like this, because it's very easy to not be confrontational. It's very easy to turn a blind eye and go, you know what? I know that's not right, but I'm not going to say anything because I don't want the confrontation. I think it's more important to turn around and say, excuse me, you do realise that that's been done before identically by this person, and there's literally no difference. And I don't think it's right that you've took their entire act that they spent years developing and just started performing it yourself. I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's right. But the problem is, when somebody gets to a certain level of success, it tends to happen. I'm waiting for the day that we have a performing geek start going around the circuit. And we'll have a performing geek, and they'll take Tom Crosby's act and they'll just rip it off and they'll just put it out exactly the same. And it's sad, it's pathetic, it really is. But unfortunately it happens, and I think it needs to stop. And the way that we make it stop is, as a community, we stand up and we say, enough is enough. No, it's okay to experiment with your styles. It's okay to experiment with how you perform and the type of magic that you do. But it's not okay to take all of this stuff and just do it yourself. Find something that's unique to you. Don't just take socks because Aiden McCann did it and did it really well and got a golden buzzer. If you want to do socks, that's great. But do it because you want to do it. Because you have an idea of presenting it in a completely different way to anyone else. Not because you've seen someone do it on TV and do a really good job. I just think that, as an industry, we need to start having a little bit more creativity. So there you go, guys. That's another video in the bag. Do me a favor. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? I'd love to know your thoughts. Am I just getting on my high horse about this? Is this not an issue? Or is this an issue? And if so, have you seen something like this happen? Has this happened to you? Or is this something that you've done in the past? And if you have, why? Let me know in the comments down below. Did you buy socks because you saw Aiden do it? And if you did, why did you do that? Why? Was it because it was a good trick, or because you wanted to do the same trick that the kid on TV did? Let me know in the comments down below. You want to see more videos like this? Like the video, subscribe to the channel. And please don't forget that if you want to, you can go ahead and you can check out the Netrix. It's www.thenetrix.com. You can go check it out and see what all the fuss is about. Trust me, it's great. We've got virtually nobody that cancels because the amount of content on there is incredible. I'm going to be back again soon with another video. So thanks very much for watching. My name's Craig from Magic TV.